You always get a little bit nervous when Scott's going to do your introduction. It's like, what is he going to say? Thank you very much. That was so kind. I can't tell you how exciting it is to be here. I don't know whether to be sad or happy on the changing of the name. How long have we lived with MBRG? Congratulations, Dwayne and the entire team, for Maryland Free Enterprise Foundation. But we will all fondly remember MBRG as we were in the legislature, everybody running around wondering about the MBRG ratings at the end of the year. And sometimes trying to figure out what MBRG actually stood for, because you had to sit back and think, what was that again that it stood for? But I love Maryland Free. But for over 3 decades, this organization has provided research and advocacy, and they have really been charting the course for what open for business actually means. You've been showing Maryland the direction that we should be moving in to have a strong business climate, and to be a place that supports and nurtures business growth rather than stifling it. You've been laying the groundwork for our efforts over the last few years. You've been working to make Maryland open for business for a very long time. It's very reassuring to know that with your name and your renewed commitment to fostering economic development and job creation, Maryland Free's important work will continue to thrive as well. Because while our work is not done, we've made wonderful progress. We are now a great place to do business, and I want to say that a few words about the man who made this possible. Governor Larry Hogan knows what businesses need because he's been there. He's built a company. He's watched it grow, and he's watched it thrive. He knows what it takes. So making sure government supports business growth and, just as importantly, stays out of the way of you having your own growth, has been a top priority of Governor Hogan from day one. This means what we've been doing all along, from day one, starting in 2015, cutting taxes, cutting fees, eliminating regulations that stand in the way of job growth. It means committing the state to providing a greater customer service and showing our clients that we respect and value your business. It means making sure that the state really is open for business, and it's working. I've had the privilege of working alongside the governor for 4 years as the Secretary of Labor, and I've seen firsthand his commitment to fostering job growth and increasing economic opportunity for each and every Marylander across the state. I'm honored to continue to serve as his Secretary of Commerce so that we can together continue this important work. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend and my boss, Governor Larry Hogan.
Wow, thank you. Thank you all very, very much. Wow. Thank you all very much. Must have given you your coffee already. Everybody's fired up. Thank you very, very much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's really great to be here with all of you. Kelly, thank you so much for the kind words and for the incredible job that you're doing. She did a great job as our Secretary of Labor. Mike Gill left some big shoes to fill, but she is going to fill them. She has much better shoes, by the way. Kelly is going to do a terrific job as Secretary of Commerce. She's already off to a great start, and I like that description, Scott. The best way to describe her is awesome. We might just call her the Secretary of Awesomeness. How about that? Thank you, Kelly. Isn't she doing a great job as our Secretary of Commerce? And I want to thank Scott and Dwayne Carey and Frank Avina for inviting me again here to be with you. I want to thank them for everything that this incredible organization does to promote business in our state and to help make Maryland more competitive. And I want to thank AT&T for being the prime sponsor again, 4 or 5 years in a row. Let's give them a big round of applause. As well as all of the other sponsors. Thank you very much. I've been a supporter of this organization, MBRG, for decades, since its founding. And one person that I want to single out who deserves a great deal of appreciation for her leadership in this organization and her dedicated service to the state of Maryland and to our nation is my friend, Ambassador Ellen Sauerbrey, who deserves a big round of applause. I'm not sure where Ellen is, but Ellen, thank you so much. And I want to thank really each and every one of you for your continued support of this newly named Maryland Free Enterprise Foundation. And I want to thank you all for doing business here in Maryland and for being such an important part of the economic resurgence that our state has been experiencing. When I was with this group last year, I said that I was looking forward to speaking at your annual luncheon for another 4 years, and thanks to the support of so many of you in this room, I'm actually going to have that opportunity to do just that. So, I appreciate you extending my contract. Thank you. With your help last year, I was able to earn more votes than any gubernatorial candidate ever in Maryland, and I became just the second Republican governor ever reelected in the entire 243-year history of our state. And I just want to thank you so much for giving me the honor of serving you for another term. Thank you all very much. Together, we, as Kelly said, have made tremendous progress, but we still have a long way to go and a lot more to accomplish, which is why, as you may have heard me reiterate to the national media over the weekend, I am committed to giving this job everything that I've got every single day over the next 4 years. You know, the time really does go by pretty quickly. It's hard to believe that the first term is over. We're into the second term. This is the 5th straight luncheon that I've been able to speak to. But so much has changed. If you just take a moment to think back to 4 years ago, when Maryland really was at a critical turning point. Our economy was floundering. Too many Marylanders were struggling just to get by. 43 consecutive tax hikes had taken $10 billion out of the pockets of struggling Maryland families and small businesses. We had lost 8,000 businesses and 100,000 jobs. Our unemployment rate had doubled, and our overall economic performance was 49th out of 50 states. And a Gallup poll showed that nearly half of all Marylanders wanted to leave the state. As a small businessman and a lifelong Marylander, like so many of you, that frustrated me so much that I decided to step up to try to do something about it. I pledged that if I was elected, I would try to do everything in my power to put Maryland on a better path, to clean up the mess in Annapolis, and to bring fiscal responsibility and common sense to our state capital. And now I know this doesn't usually happen in politics, but we have actually been doing exactly what we said we were going to do. We put together new leadership in state government, attracting successful business people who knew how to run things more efficiently and more cost effectively. As Kelly was talking about, Maryland is open for business wasn't just a slogan. We have actually changed the mission of state government to be unabashedly pro-jobs and pro-business. We've cleared away the tangle of regulatory undergrowth and made customer service a top priority throughout state government. The very first budget I submitted eliminated nearly the entire $5.1 billion structural deficit that we inherited. It was the first structurally balanced budget in a decade, and we have continued to pass balanced budgets every single year for 5 straight years. We cut tolls at every single facility in the state by $316 million First-time tolls have been cut in 50 years. We eliminated 250 fees and more than 850 job-killing regulations. We have not had a single tax increase since I became governor. Instead, we actually cut taxes 5 years in a row by $1.25 billion, and we put all that money back into the pockets of hardworking Marylanders, retirees, and small businesses, and back into our growing economy. And we literally did a complete 180-degree turn. Instead of losing 100,000 jobs, we gained more than 120,000 jobs. More businesses are now open, and more people are working than ever before in the history of our state. And we have had one of the biggest economic turnarounds in the United States of America. U.S. News and World Report recently ranked the best states in the nation, compiling data in 68 different categories. And I'm proud to report that Maryland just beat out 44 other states, including our neighbors in Virginia, who used to beat us in just about everything. We have made incredible progress in turning our state around, and the people in this room and the people in this organization have really been an important part of that success. Now, it's not perfect, and we have certainly not accomplished everything that I would like to accomplish. More than 2/3 of the members of both houses of our legislature are of a different party and of a different mindset. And they don't always understand just how important job creators are to creating jobs and growing our economy. We have been extraordinarily successful in transforming the executive branch of state government. But I'm not a magician, and I can't do it all by myself or with the handful of pro-jobs legislators joining together with us, some of whom are in the room with us here today, and they deserve a round of applause for their efforts against tough odds. But let's face it, we're outnumbered by a lot. But look how far we have come in spite of the tremendous odds that are stacked against us. 4 years ago, more than 2/3 of all Marylanders thought that our state was way off track and headed in the wrong direction. And now, an overwhelming majority of Marylanders, 87% of Republicans, 82% of Democrats, and 82% of independents, and 74% of Democrats approve of the job that we're doing and the direction we're heading. That's unheard of and unprecedented. Most Marylanders strongly believe that things are getting better, that we're making progress and moving Maryland forward. Now, there are 10% of the people in Maryland who strongly disapprove of the job that we're doing. Unfortunately, every single one of them is in the Maryland General Assembly. It sometimes seems as if their primary goal, their ultimate mission, is to ignore 80% of all Marylanders. Some of them seem hell-bent on stopping all of the economic progress and positive momentum that we've achieved. And some of them are doing everything in their power to return us to the same failed policies that we have spent the past 4 years working so hard to dig the state out from. We cannot let that happen. The actions that they're attempting to take threaten not only to bring our 4 years of progress to a screeching halt, but they could actually slam us into reverse and run us back into the ditch. Just this year, in 90 days, legislators introduced a staggering $7 billion in mandated spending increases, reverting back to the policies of spending more than we can afford. They overrode my veto to increase the minimum wage by nearly 50% to $15. Maryland had just increased its minimum wage 4 years in a row by nearly 40% to $10.10, which was already by far the highest in the region and one of the highest in the nation. Now, inflating the state's minimum wage to more than double that of Virginia, which is at $7.25, it could make it very difficult to compete and could simply be too much for our economy to bear. A 48% increase in costs could be crippling to some of our small mom and pop businesses. The NFIB estimates that this one action alone could result in the elimination of 99,000 Maryland jobs. Jobs for the very people that they are professing to want to help and who desperately need the jobs the most. It will mean a loss of more than $61 billion in economic input and could lead to a reversal of much of the positive job creation and economic progress that we've worked so hard to achieve over the past 4 years. Meanwhile, while we're trying to attract and retain jobs in Baltimore City, the violence in the city continues to escalate out of control. People who live in Baltimore City don't feel safe in their own neighborhoods, and citizens all across the state are outraged by the daily headlines of this rampant gang violence. Just last weekend, 11 people were injured and 1 person was killed in 8 separate shootings in Baltimore City. The level of violence is completely unacceptable. So we launched a joint operation which sent in nearly 500 federal, state, and local law enforcement officers from 26 different law enforcement agencies into the city to back up the beleaguered city police force. We made 1,900 arrests, including the arrest of several hundred of the city's most violent repeat offenders. But many were released right back onto the streets to commit crimes all over again. It's like catch and release. Most are never convicted. And according to the Baltimore City Police Department, even those who are actually convicted of gun crimes in Baltimore City, 60% do not ever serve any serious jail time and are released back onto the streets to commit violent felonies again and again. Inexplicably, the legislature refused once again to pass our Repeat Firearms Offenders Act to enact tougher sentences for repeat violent offenders who commit felonies with guns. For years, Maryland had crumbling roads and bridges and the worst traffic congestion in the nation. We decided to finally do something about that. And we've been moving forward on nearly all of the highest priority transportation projects in every single jurisdiction all across the state. An unprecedented and historic investment in our transportation infrastructure in both transit and roads. The legislature attempted to stop all of these road improvements. They passed a roadkill bill, which jeopardized the most important projects in every jurisdiction in Maryland. I vetoed the bill. They overrode my veto, but we didn't give up. The public was so outraged by their opposition to improving transportation that we forced the legislature to come back and repeal their roadkill bill. And we are now moving forward once again on nearly every single transportation improvement everywhere in the state that had been delayed and neglected for decades. We also invested more than $50 million to implement a cutting-edge smart signalization network with adaptive signal control systems along 14 key congested corridors throughout the state, including locations in Anne Arundel, Baltimore, Charles, Harford, Howard, Prince George's, and Montgomery counties. We have repaved more than 1/2 of the entire state highway system in just 4 years, something that would normally take decades. All 6 of the structurally deficient bridges which we inherited are now either repaired, replaced, or under construction. And in addition to all the road improvements, no governor in the history of the state has ever invested more in transit. We began construction on the Purple Line, which is the largest P3 public-private transit project in North America. We worked together with our neighbors in the region to finally provide a dedicated source of funding to save the metro system. Rebuilding our transportation infrastructure requires a balanced approach. You simply cannot relieve traffic congestion without increasing capacity on our roads as well. We've proposed taking 295 over from the Department of Interior so that we can widen the Baltimore-Washington Parkway all the way from Baltimore to Washington. We propose the largest traffic relief project in the world with improvements to I-270 and 495, the Capitol Beltway, after literally decades of inaction and public outcry regarding traffic congestion on those roads. Unbelievably, some legislators and local elected officials are apparently in favor of continued traffic congestion and are once again working to stall our plans to solve traffic congestion issues. Apparently, they've got very short memories, and they seemingly learn nothing from losing the roadkill battle. They seem to have completely forgotten that the people of Maryland are tired of inaction and tired of wasting their lives sitting in traffic. This is like a bad movie sequel, The Return of the Roadkill. It's like the mother of all roadkills. I mean, yes, it's the worst traffic congestion in America. They want to fight to make sure that their constituents continue to spend their lives stuck in that traffic. We've proposed the only serious solution to this issue. These politicians have done absolutely nothing for decades, and they've done nothing but spread misinformation. They've offered no real solutions to solve a transportation, public health, environmental, and public safety crisis that is literally damaging our economy and the quality of life throughout the entire region. Our traffic relief plans have received widespread support, advancing through 70 public hearings, workshops, meetings, and votes. We earned praise from the Washington Post editorial board, and this is supported by a large majority of citizens who are sick and tired of spending countless hours of their lives stuck in traffic. The vote on this issue is tomorrow before the Board of Public Works, and it literally will determine the quality of life for Marylanders for decades to come. In Maryland, we're proud to have some of the best and most highly funded schools in America. We have provided record funding 5 years in a row, investing $32 billion in K through 12 education, which is more funding than the legislature proposed. More than half of our entire capital budget goes towards education. And the Casino Lockbox Initiative, which we pushed for, was approved back in November by 80% of the people in Maryland. And it's going to provide $4.4 billion more for our schools. Yet in spite of all that, the legislature in this past session, in 90 days, forced through billions and billions of dollars more in mandated spending increases with no plan whatsoever on how to pay for any of it. These latest fiscally responsible proposals would cause an $18.7 billion budget deficit over the next 5 years. $18.7 billion. They would force a crushing $6,200 tax hike on the average Maryland family. The Department of Budget and Management estimates that paying for these proposals and solving the budget deficit that they create would require a 39% increase in the personal income tax an 89% increase in the sales tax, or a staggering 535% increase in the property tax. I got everybody's attention? Let me be as clear as I can possibly be. Not a single one of those things is ever going to happen as long as I'm your governor. I can promise you that. Let me close with this. The number one problem facing Maryland is that there seems to be a complete disconnect between the professional politicians in Annapolis and all the rest of us. Nearly 80% of all the people in Maryland, Republicans, Democrats, independents, they are finally happy with the direction that Maryland is heading. They want us to continue making progress and to keep moving Maryland forward. And yet, out of touch, far-left politicians desperately want to take Maryland in the completely opposite direction. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the battle that will literally determine what kind of state our kids and our grandkids will inherit. This is not just your typical fight between Democrats and Republicans. This is much more important than that. This literally is a fight for Maryland's future, and it's a fight worth fighting. And that's really what the next 4 years is going to be all about. Do we want to take Maryland backwards and return to the failed policies of the past, or do you want us to continue making progress and to continue moving Maryland forward? Do you want us to go back to the days of uncontrolled spending, massive tax hikes, billion-dollar deficits, devastating job losses, businesses and taxpayers fleeing the state in droves, and a state economy that ranks 49th out of 50 states? Or do you want us to keep adding businesses and jobs, keep growing the economy, and continue having one of the best economic turnarounds in America? I know which side I stand on, and I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep fighting hard every single day for the people of Maryland and for this great state that I love. And I can't do it alone. This afternoon, I'm asking every single one of you here to commit to joining me in this critically important fight for Maryland's future. We cannot afford to turn back now. Maryland is worth fighting for. Let's stand up and fight back together. Let's continue moving our state forward, and let's keep changing Maryland for the better. Thank you so much.
Governor Hogan, thank you so much. Although the mandated spending is chilling, I'm grateful that the roadkill discussion waited till everyone was done eating. That was helpful. Governor, come on a little closer. We hear all the time that this event is, and I've probably heard this 20 times, that this event is everyone's favorite event of the year. And I had two new sponsors come up to me today and say, wow, I had no idea this is what it was going to be. This is fantastic. And it's all thanks to you, and we very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. So our tradition here is we love to find an issue that we know is important to the governor and as a thank you to him, we make a donation to a nonprofit. And we did some checking, and we found this great organization called the Cool Kids Foundation. Campaign. Thank you. And they're a great organization that's local and that helps pediatric cancer patients with emotional, educational, and social support. And I'd like to invite Renee Wooding, the philanthropy director of Cool Kids Campaign, to come on up. And we have a check for $1,000 to this great organization. There is actually a real check that goes with that, I promise.